I'm Leonid Konik. I'm the General Director and Editor-in-Chief of Com News. And today, in this session, we will have Valihan Mohamed Rahinov from Freedom Telecom Operations. Dmitry Bitlugin, who is the Director on Access to the Markets and Sales in Central Asia, Eutelsat OneWeb. Valentin Palavenko, Technical Director of Mobile Telephone Service, Tele2 Altel, and Oleg Yemelyanov, the President of Kazakhstani Association of Telecoms Operators. It's not like we have a lot of time, we have only 1 hour, but we will try to cover a very wide range of various issues. And since our event today is dedicated to convergence and different telecommunication networks, cellular or satellite or fixed networks, I would like to ask the following questions. How do you see the ideal proportion in the development of terrestrial networks, fixed terrestrial networks and satellite networks to provide access to the state services and to telecommunication services for all citizens. Maybe it will have to be discussed by the government authorities, but Galihan, I would like to address this question to you. Yes, as a matter of fact, we are the right probably entity to entertain this question, because in Freedom Telecom Operations we have access jointly with our colleagues Astel we have access to the networks, and we are also constructing and deploying the backbone networks. And in our company, we believe that it doesn't matter at all how we are going to reach out to our client. We anticipate that it is based on freedom ecosystem, and telecoms services are representing only a small part of it, because there are a lot of various services. And as our shareholder is telling us, the main purpose is to make sure that our client will be embraced from all sides, but gently. And we do not differentiate. We do not, it really doesn't matter for us how we're going to reach out to the client. The most important thing for us is to provide a very high quality service through radio links or through fixed lines, or I think that it really doesn't matter. And moreover, for the client, it is not that relevant because they take a look at the comprehension and perception of their own of the services that they receive, and they are indifferent to the technologies with the help of which we manage to reach out to our clients. Thank you very much. Dmitry, I would like to turn the floor to you, because you are very much interested in the development of the SATCOM, but what is the lucky medium? Well, I think that nobody will be able to entertain this question and tell you what's going to be the proportion, because the proportion between various telecommunication services depends on various factors. And our philosophy is really very simple, because I think that any type of transportation environment should be used to provide services to the end user, whether these are terrestrial networks or LOS networks or SATCOM. SATCOM in general it can be very helpful for the traditional terrestrial operators to reach out, where either for the terrestrial operators it is not profitable to provide coverage in some very remote areas, or maybe sometimes even to test business cases, because SATCOM, and I'm talking about NGS solutions, and they are cheaper from the point of view of the deployment of terrestrial networks. And here we can very quickly deploy the elements of network infrastructure using the satellite transmission, and we can take a look at whether or not it's worth it to deploy the terrestrial infrastructure. Valentin, you are representing the cell operator to make sure that it will be operational in every part of Kazakhstan. Of course, you can get it connected with via LOS fixed lines, so SATCOM, and in principle, mobile telecom services, do they change depending on the environment or ecosystems? Did anything change when you have got a new proprietor in January? Well, I think that when we are talking about the client can get connected wirelessly even at home. Anyway, it's going to be Wi-Fi, and most likely it's going to work through Wi-Fi. But when we talk about the connection of the technological equipment through which a client is working, ideally the proportion should be 100-0-0, when every base station, every house is connected through fiber optic line. And as it has been rightly mentioned by the previous speaker, everything depends on the deployment time. Of course, satellite is very expensive, but very fast. Then we have another environment, which is LOS, and then fiber optics. But ideally, if you ask me, my personal opinion, I believe that 100% connectivity should be through fiber optic lines. And I think that the dark fiber optics enables when we replace the base stations to 3, 4, 5, 6G in general, we'll be able to provide operational capacity of the base stations. Some time ago, the low orbital state satellites operators said that they will be able to they will be very profitable. The future is for them because the delay of the signal is going to be very short. And do you see any future for the connection, interconnection between base stations? Base stations? Well, if we have to make sure that direct to cell will be provided as a complementary service, of course, it could be great to transmit the signals through satellite network. But with regard to the base stations of Gen 5, in general, it is from 5 to 6 gigabyte. And the current satellite technologies will not enable us to do so. Well, frankly speaking, they will enable us to do so, but the price is going to be gigantic. It's too expensive. It's very expensive. Therefore, answering your question directly, no, I don't see the future for these solutions. Okay, thank you very much. Now the floor is turned to Oleg Yemelyanov. Oleg, you were opening the session, morning session, and you were talking about the development of the telecom market in Kazakhstan. And how do you see the changes in the proportion of using various media for signal transmission? Well, I think that probably I will definitely join and side with Valentin here, 100-0-0, but the capabilities that are provided by fiber optic lines provide us the opportunities and, let's say, the functions which will never be granted to us by SATCOM or any other transportation means. It's a different cup of tea that in countries like Kazakhstan, sometimes it takes time too long to deploy fiber optic, to lay down fiber optic lines to some remote areas. With regard to satellites, I have already mentioned it before, but probably I will reiterate. It is very important for us not to become the hostages of satellite constellations, because there is, an idea that why do we need to lay down kilometers and hundreds of thousands of kilometers of fiber optics if it is very easy for us to integrate remote areas through SATCOM. But we have to understand very well that all the players, for example, geostationary satellites are the players from foreign countries. They are not our domestic companies, and we don't know anything about the policy. There is a very famous case of Starlink in Africa when they actually grabbed the whole market of the local operators, and there are some other cases when Starlink simply dropped some of the African countries, and of course it caused a lot of social tension, and therefore we may turn out in the situation when we are not investing in the infrastructure development. We get our clients connected through various foreign satellites, and then for different reasons the satellites can leave our market and the clients will be left behind without any infrastructure and communication channels. Maybe I'm too much conservative, but I think that the infrastructure will have to be constructed, even though it takes a long time and even though it is expensive, but it will stay with us for a very long period of time because the foreign players may drop us at any point of time. Does it mean that you would have recommended in principle not to use the services of foreign players when there are some such risks and you don't want to be the hostage of a satellite constellation? Well, I think that we do have a project with Starlink, which is a pilot project, and we've been discussing this possibility, such likelihood. You know, we have already become the hostages to some extent, because when we were deploying Starlink for rural schools, nobody saw that it is violating the local legislation. But for this sake, we decided to establish the regulatory sandbox and peculiar legal framework under which we were allowed to violate the law. But you know, on the 1st of January, the pilot project of Starlink will expire, and the biggest question mark for the regulator is what's next? What shall we do next? And therefore, we have to arrange it in such a way that on a temporary basis, we should be able to continue using these services. But definitely, satellites should not be the basis of any permanent solutions. The infrastructure should be deployed, and fiber optics will have to be in place. So, of course, we will not be able to satisfy this need by 100%, especially in such a vast territory as Kazakhstan. But this is one of our objectives. Thank you very much. The next question is, in telecom, almost in all countries of the world, they were establishing universal telecom services funds to provide telecom services in remote areas or where it is commercially not worthwhile for the telecoms operators to provide services. Such funds foundations are a little bit archaic, but do you think that the government should subsidize provision of equal access to telecom services? And if yes, then maybe you will see some other formats, maybe PPP, maybe concessions, maybe since now everything is ruled by content providers, maybe the commercials model can provide this service. For example, when on the starting page of Wi-Fi, there will be some ads. Okay, I will start with the end. Talking about the advertisement model, it requires, of course, a lot of people. It needs some mass weight. And Kazakhstan, in this regard, is not the country where we have a lot of people, big concentration of people in remote areas, unfortunately. Which is why the model based on advertisements, on commercials, I think it will not work. With regard to government programs, first it has to be noted that there are some such government programs, for example, rural farming programs, and if I'm not mistaken, it's already phase 4 of this program, which is in progression, according to which Kazakh Telecom will secure telecommunication lines in remote areas with very low density of population. And in this regard, the government is fulfilling its obligations, but it's clear that to reach out to every small settlement, every small farm is very difficult. But this is not the story about money, because this is the story of social equality, because they are also citizens of our country and they pay taxes and they have the right to get the same benefits. We are in the 21st century. This is the reason for which when we invest in such not probably very profitable projects still is necessary, because it's a social program. Thank you. Dmitry, based on your own experience of Eutelsat, because Eutelsat was making a lot of money from different countries who were providing internet access in remote areas. As a matter of fact, the national programs on liquidation of the digital gap do exist. And they exist in Kazakhstan, in Central Asian region, and in the African region. And we have a lot of projects based on the use of geostationary satellites where the government is involved. There are some national initiatives based on the European Union, for example, who are funding the access to satellite technologies as well, among all. And in very remote areas that are not densely populated. Therefore, such programs do exist. They should not be interrupted or broken. But talking about the foundation of universal access, maybe the government will have to transform this concept based on the modern realities. And we have to understand what is modern telecommunications services provision, because I believe that just the access to phone calls is not taken by the population as such. Thank you. Valentin, what is your vision of equal access to services? Do you believe that the government telecommunication access foundation should be in place, or there should be a different approach? Well, definitely all the citizens should have access to state services, and the government has several leverages for this, which will enable us to implement it. The first leverage is, of course, represented by tax breaks. When the taxes will be reduced for the operators, if the operator is developing the networks in those areas that are not commercially attractive. There should be a kind of delta that should be implemented by the operator for the investment purposes, for example, in terms of the number of base stations. And the operator usually goes definitely to the areas where it is commercially more profitable.
Building things in remote places, they can get some tax deductions or preferences, tax breaks. While there is one simple formula, the operator is ready to provide communication services, but they are not ready to run electricity to these locations, because the base station is an expensive product, and running electrical power if there is no power lines nearby. This is a key question. And the third tool for the government is the legal framework. The more simple it is, the more liberal it is from the standpoint of allocation of those telecom facilities, the fewer hurdles they have with paperwork and so on. I think this is the most convenient tool for the government, because for the government it costs nothing. They need to think about it. And our speaker at the beginning, there was this law on telecoms, which is an outdated one. It's being changed, amended regularly without any effect. The fourth way is creating competition. Satellite constellations, the more satellite constellations become legal in this country, the more competition there will be and the more chances for the telecom operators to run telecom services to some remote areas. And the government private public-private partnership PPP running power or telecoms along the highways. Some can build power lines and lighting for the particular highway and providing electrical power for the operators to install the base stations and the tax stimulation, tax breaks, or ability to get new spectrum. 4G discounts, 5G discounts, 3G, lower discounts for 3G, and motivating operators to constantly upgrade these technologies. Thank you. One particular instrument is a joint use of base stations and spectrum. Isn't this the way out to cover some of the small areas, like you install one single base station, but to be used by all three operators? In Kazakhstan, did you legalize RAN sharing and the joint use of base stations? It's legalized, and we do work with KCell, MTS, and KCell. We do use RAN sharing. It's most advanced technology when we share not just hardware but also spectrum. These substantially reduces the workload. And the other good solution that we talked about, the Russian Federation, there is this project to eliminate a digital gap. When the government fully subsidizes the construction of the telecom facilities, but those operators who get this lot, they have an obligation to provide sharing for all our mobile operators in this particular residential area, mandatorily. They get compensation for their investments. So this particular tool, this is a good one and reduces the overall cost. Thank you. Oleg, what about the Universal Services Fund? Isn't this the time to correct the whole notion of this? What is universal telecom service? Maybe to use some other tools to provide equal coverage for all of the residential areas where people can be. Let me tell you what's the current situation about the universal telecom services. How is this functioning now? The law on telecom defines that there is a universal telecom services. Universal telecom services include telephone, communication, fixed lines, and internet access. Universal telecom services are provided by universal service operators who participate in tenders, and some of them win. When I say somebody, only one Kazakh Telecom participates and also wins. There is no even a lobby of Kazakh Telecom. Maybe there is some lobby for Kazakh Telecom. Let me explain why this is happening. Because the universal telecom services and the way they are written in the law, for the operator, they are not really beneficial because only losses are subsidized. How does it happen? When an operator starts providing universal telecom services in one of the residential areas, they must charge customers 2,200 tenge. For the customer, it will cost this much, 2,200, some funny money. But for the remote areas, this is a lot. The operator of the universal service will do its calculations. There is some complicated formula. They calculate their cost, and if the cost of services appears to be 10,000 tenge, then the difference between 10,000 tenge they spent and 2,200 tenge they get 7,800 tenge is to be reimbursed back by the government. With this kind of an approach, there is no motivation for operators to go to the remote areas, build some networks, because you'll never be able to get return on your capital expenditure. You will not be able to get your money back. It's easier to put money on some deposit in a bank and rather than spend a lot of effort and resources. So no one else goes there. Like I said, I've been working closely with the ministry, and a couple of years ago, they simply begged us to go to some residential areas. They wanted to develop some competition. Please, several companies, not just Kazakh Telecom, but as we started looking into this, everyone refused to do so. We ain't gonna get any benefits out of this. I can tell you, in terms of the numbers, the government spent about 8 billion tenge for these services. Kazakh Telecom got the reimbursement of 8 billion tenge, which appeared to be their losses. So here you need to understand that this approach must be changed radically. If we want for this network to be built, you need to either embed some profit element, or maybe I should take a step back. Why do we do this? Are we eliminating digital gap or help people to pay less? Because right now, as it seems, we are trying to we are preventing from the telecom services to be expensive in the rural areas. This issue is being addressed, but the network, the telecom service development, this is not being addressed. Also, let me tell you about some other initiatives. There are PPP projects. There have been two of these. When the operators, together with the government, they built lines all the way to the residential areas, power lines. But we come across a big problem that the operators make it to the rural areas, connect the local government, the hospital and police, but the residents remain without any electrical power. Power makes it to the village, but villagers are not able to use it. So now they are launching the process of subsidizing of building electrical grid in the villages. Right now, the country's parliament wants to ratify this agreement with the World Bank. There will be the meeting of the parliament next week. I'll also participate in that one. And I hope Majlis will sign and ratify this contract. According to this, the World Bank will allocate the loan of about $90 million. And this money will go to the operators to subsidize capital expenditure. And every operator who participates, the government will pay back 50% of capital expenditure for the construction of such networks in rural areas. Of course, there are lots of questions out there, but hopefully we will resolve these matters. And hopefully we'll also make it to those remote villages. And I should also say that we were planning the third PPP project, when the operators can run optics all the way to the villages. But the PPP didn't work out, and they now signed this investment agreement with Kazakh Telecom. Kazakh Telecom will be building. We will go to a number of villages, but there is a mandatory requirement to connect 30 to 40% of the local residents. The errors of the recent years when they would run optics, but people would remain without no communication. Hopefully those mistakes will be taken care of, and hopefully they will be building things to Every country has a national development plan. Uh, well, there might be different names. Do you see any possibility to integrate into these national plans satellite internet access, not on K band, but from the new orbits, lower orbits, medium orbits? Is there any technical possibility for this? Look, in Kazakhstan, there is a program of affordable internet, and some of the satellite capabilities are already integrated, and they added a few points, such as providing access to some remote areas. In the other countries, we see the same. Speak about the role of the government must provide the access possibility to its citizens. National operators who work there, the government must be able to provide these services. Access to the satellite constellations, it's one of the such possibilities, because it will help to implement these projects, like I said, very quickly, in some instances more efficiently, versus launching ground-based infrastructure. So basically, these projects are out there. This integration is there. Speaking about the next generation networks, there the philosophy 6G, all of the available transport mediums must be used. Ground, satellite, or some other type of telecom technology that might appear. Speaking about the internet from different orbits, on the customer side, they don't want to have several sets of equipment. They want to have one piece of equipment that would be able to get satellite internet from different orbits. This kind of equipment is already out there affordable. Here I need to differentiate approaches to business, to satellite operators. When we speak about low orbit satellites, everyone immediately recalls Starlink. There are two active operators out there, Starlink and us, with completely different business models and different approaches. Nearby we have the Chinese space sail, Amazon's based project next year coming online. And when we speak about terminals, you need to understand it all depends on the business model. Speaking about the SpaceX, Starlink, their terminal will always be a low orbit, closed one, unable to seamlessly integrate into the networks of the other operators. This is their philosophy. Our approach, we have inter-operators segment, inter-operators class. We're not planning to sell these to individual users, so their cost is substantially higher. Maybe we should know that Starlink is heavily subsidizing its terminals. In the marketplace, this is unreal cost of the terminals. This is twice as cheap as Starlink pays for the manufacturing of these. Speaking about Eutelsat OneWeb, we have two standard terminals that operate with different satellites. Of course, different orbits can be integrated via different terminals, which is less comfortable. Will they become cheaper? Yes, of course they will become cheaper, because this market segment is also developing. Let me speak for myself. Range of terminals is quite substantial. It includes several different manufacturers, so the presence of this competition amongst the terminal producers makes them enables us to make them cheaper and cheaper. OneWeb was coming to the market with a single Intelli terminal, Intelli, a little bit less complicated than VSAT, but again requiring special engineering skills. Right now, the majority of our portfolio are flat panels. The most recent terminals that appeared, Hughes and Intelli, they don't really cost dozens of thousands or above $10,000. This is about $4,000 to $5,000, and I think they will be going down in price. Again, it may sound as some sort of advertising, but having an open system, it's easier for us to work with the terminal manufacturers and to improve quality and performance of these terminals. Well, in principle, I think till the end of the next year, those who can start using our services in the region, while in the other parts of the world, we will see a substantial increase in quality even at half-duplex terminals. Since we start talking about equipment, let's move from equipment for the mobile networks to the ancient times when they were building a GSM network. We had about 24 manufacturers of the base stations. Now there are about 4 of these companies, 2 Chinese and 2 European ones, and this is East and West. East companies, they are not allowed to the Western markets and vice versa. I'd like to address this question to Valentin Palazenko. This is about the little number of manufacturers of base stations. Does it have any impact on pricing for those when purchasing? In Kazakhstan, it's all fine with this. We have everyone, both Western and Eastern manufacturers, and they compete with each other successfully. East versus West, West versus East, so I don't see any problem here. Speaking about the whole region of Central Asia or this is, how do you see the situation with the access and pricing? Well, then, from the standpoint of the legal initiatives on difficulties with access, well, typically these exist in the western part of the world where the market leader Ericsson is enjoying their situation because the majority of the western countries they are not allowed to buy Huawei ZTE, and there is this story with the legal framework. Moving east, there is no such questions at all. Anyone can take part, and this is just a matter of quality and price.
This is why I would like to say that in the Central Asian market, there are not any peculiarities here. Everybody is competing with each other. And in terms of mobile telephony, we have everybody, Huawei, ZTE, and Ericsson. All of them are here. Dear colleagues, do you have anything else to add about the base stations? Okay, let's move on. Colleagues, do you have any questions to our distinguished panel discussion participants on the pool of questions that we have been discussing? No. Okay. Then let's move on. I had a pretty interesting but general issue concerning the fraud. Fraud in general has become one of the problems. There are different types of fraud, the internet fraud, mobile telephony fraud, etc. What kind of actions can be undertaken by the operators to bring it to zero, to eradicate such fraudster activities. Well, with regard to fraud, it's understandable that every operator will have to take every reasonable measure in the framework of its competences. Business should make money. Business is not involved in charity, and then the shareholder will take the decision on charity. And I would like to do the same parallel with fraud, because the operators will have to provide telecommunication services in a very safe manner. But operators cannot undertake any police functions, because to this end, we do have authorized bodies who are supposed to be involved into it. And very often, unfortunately, one party is undertaking the responsibility of the other one, and then the responsibility is kind of diluted, as well as the effect. We as operators, we have to do everything possible to help the law enforcement authorities. But of course, we cannot undertake this police function of finding out the fraudsters and punishing them. Thank you. Colleagues, does anybody agree with it or disagree with it, whether the operators will have to protect the subscribers from fraudsters, or it's just the function of the law enforcement authorities and the government? Well, I do agree with the previous opinion, but I believe that there are some methods where the operators jointly with the government can help. For example, when the SIM cards are on sale, when the SIM cards should be duly registered. We know who is the owner of the SIM card. And I think that this is a kind of interoperator interaction when every operator will understand what kind of number is supposed, for example, to be channeled from Beeline to Tele2. Then most likely the call will be coming from Beeline. But if it is coming from elsewhere, we can suspect that it's a fraudulent call. And I believe that there should be a kind of mechanized or automated interaction between the operators when this hypothesis can be checked. When, for example, a subscriber of Beeline is calling from a different country, and therefore the call is coming from a different route, or the number has been replaced. These type of mechanisms help us to fight and to cope with fraudsters. Well, sometimes, there is a spam. It's not, a fraudulent call, but it's a spam when sales managers are calling people and promoting their goods. Well, in this type of situation, should the operator somehow participate in it? For example, Beeline Russia has introduced the service which is called labeling. When there is this type of spam telephone call incoming to a subscriber, then there is a kind of label on the screen that is describing who's calling and why. Do you think that this type of function should be implemented by the operators, or it is not necessary? I think that this is not necessarily can be done by the operator. This can be done by OTT without any interaction with the operator. Well, for example, there might be a Yandex identifier, number identifier, when on the display on the screen you will see who's calling. There might be, let's say, a proposal that it might be a call from the fraudster. But from my point of view, I believe that what is really very necessary, the fraudsters can approach you somewhere out in the street. I think that my proposal should be that we really have to be very critical about the incoming information, and we have to cross-check this information. There are various ways of doing it, psychologically wise or technically wise. Both ways are very useful. But the most important thing is that the people, the subscribers, the users should know about this kind of fraudulent provocations. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have anything to add? Yes, I would like, if I may, to add. I really do agree with the previous speakers, because Valentin noted it very rightly, that the technical part and psychological part of the fraud should be separated somehow. And I do agree with Walihan when he said that the operators should provide the telecom services rather than, catching fraudsters. All these efforts will anyway be integrated into the tariff, and these functions are kind of superimposed on the operators, which will not be implemented, I would say, with great enthusiasm because they are not paid for it. And what is also very important to understand about it, sometimes you cannot, let's say, claim that the operator is guilty for it when the telephone number is replaced or when it is changed. Yes, it can be implemented somehow, but very often we are encountering a situation when people are expecting too much from the operators, and they said that you have to interrupt to break the telephone calls in WhatsApp. I don't know, Valentin, if you have been facing such situation when the regulator was claiming that we as operators, we have to interrupt WhatsApp telephone calls, but it's impossible. I mean, we cannot dive in there because it's high level, and we really have to understand where there is power of an operator and the effect from the work of an operator. Maybe in such instances, it is possible to interact somehow, but where there is no such effect, or such effect might be negative, probably it will not be worthwhile to force operator be involved into it. Well, there was a legendary story when 12 years ago the Duma in the Russian Federation wanted to adopt the amendments and changes into the law on telecoms, which would have forced the operators to make equal the number of symbols in Cyrillic and Latin messages, and we had to, explain to the MPs that it is exceeding the competences and the authority of the operators, and we had to explain that one Cyrillic symbol is coded by two Latin symbols. Lately we were talking about a great number of various cable projects that are starting or are launched in Kazakhstan. For example, the digital Silk Way and the fiber optic line, which is going to be laid down on the bottom of the Caspian Sea. Do you see that there is a kind of shortage of backbone lines? And do you think that such backbone lines will increase the bit rate of access and the price of interoperator cost and the price for the end user by the end of the day? Well, I would like to entertain this question in the following way. The colleague from the previous session already mentioned that our shareholder and the Ministry of Telecom have already signed a memorandum according to which Kazakh Telecom is constructing a hyper network, which is a very capital-intensive project, very expensive project, but it will be able to cover a great number of various objectives. And it is as important as the energy supply or power supply project because telecommunication services are very important for business, and therefore we are constructing this infrastructure, the backbone line of which is one of the main components, and we do it for ourselves because we would like to provide some new telecommunication services to our partners in Kazakhstan and outside it. And it's understandable that we are player number 5. We are one of the tools. And one of such tools to improve our market position is, of course, price pressure on the market. And of course, we are going to exert such pressure and to bring down the prices not only for our partners, operators, but also for our business partners and definitely for the subscribers of the network as well. And we have a very good understanding that the telecom service itself should not be very expensive for the subscriber. The subscriber should not pay for this fact of telecommunication service, but the end user, the subscriber, should pay for something that the customer gets thanks to the available connectivity. Well, if we compare it with the simile that you made with the power supply system, maybe we should pay for the service of the juice extracting appliance or for the effect of working vacuum cleaner. No, I mean monetization of power supply. Well, I don't know how to imagine it. Well, what I mean to say when I was talking about telecommunication, I meant, for example, the access to remote banking, or this might be one of the good reasons why you are not paying for your home internet. I would say that it is more of a structural interaction. Okay, thank you. May I also try to answer this question from the point of view of the consumer of the trunk routes? When we, as satellite providers, are talking about very high concepts such or elevated concepts such as the satellites, etc., but we do have 42 integration stations, a little bit a fewer number of integration and the connectivity stations, and the topology of our network anticipates that all these elements and components should be very closely interacting with each other and integrated with each other. And since the availability of our network should be really very high, therefore we have a very stringent requirement to the terrestrial communication links. And here in Kazakhstan, we were facing such a problem that it was really very difficult to find the geographically separated routes. Now, for example, if we are getting connected with our communication node in Amsterdam, we always require that there should be two more geographically separated shoulders. And it was absolutely impossible, next to impossible, to find such shoulders. For example, the link back was running towards Southeast Asia, and it was even more difficult, not from the point of view of trunk links and not trunk links, but it was very difficult to find the networks that were not overlapping each other, so that we will be able to reach out outside. Therefore, we are really looking forward to this fiber optic line, which will be laid down on the bottom of the Caspian Sea, because there is a great need for us to access the Black Sea countries. And there are some current proposals on the market which are forcing us again to get back to Europe. I mean, instead of running through Kazakhstan, we are using a much longer route through Europe, therefore making it more expensive. And of course, there will be the delays in the signal, which become absolutely unacceptable, because one more requirement to our terrestrial networks is that the terrestrial delay of the signal should not be very big, because by the end of the day it will negatively affect our satellite signal delay. So, well, the operator of satellite communication is waiting for the fiber optic line on the bottom of the Caspian Sea. It sounds a little bit paradoxical. What about the fiber optic lines? And do you believe that the current prices are not very good for the operator, and can we expect the reduction of the retail tariffs? Well, reduction of the tariffs for the trunk services could be really very good, but again, I would like to reiterate on the quality, because what is internet? It's intended for the content users. Where do we have the content? In Western Europe and Southeast Asia, and these routes, I would say that it is a very long-standing dream that we would like to have a very short route from Southeast Asia to West Europe, so that this content will run through these lines with minimal delay. They always existed, but you know what we were doing? We were kind of patching different short segments of these routes, and the maritime routes through the Indian Ocean, through Suez, through the North Ocean. Well, it's through the Arctic Ocean. It's not available yet. And this is why we are obtaining the content there, or as we bring the caches much closer to CDN, to the clients. Therefore, I believe that it is not a question of price. This is the question of quality of provided services. And maybe one final question that I would like to ask in the framework of our current session. You know that there are new foreign investors which are finding inroads in the market of Kazakhstan. OneWeb, for example, or Qatar International Holding, which has acquired Telecom service company. Do you think that the end users will have to expect enhancement of competition and the reduction of tariffs, or the new investors will try to return their investment as soon as possible, and the prices will fly up? Well, I would like probably to say a few words on it. You know, the question on the need to reduce the tariffs, the definition itself is not correct. I think that the tariff for telecommunication services here in Kazakhstan are pretty low if you compare them with other countries with similar economies, and even with the countries where the economic situation is much better. I would say that in Kazakhstan the prices for telecommunication services are pretty comfortable, not only inside the country, but I would say that the mobile operators are providing pretty good prices for roaming services as well. Therefore, when we talk about further tariffs reduction, probably will not be appropriate. It's a different cup of tea that the investors who come here, of course, they would like to break even in the framework of their business cases as soon as possible. What would we vote for high-quality telecommunication services or for low tariffs? Unfortunately, you cannot put an equation mark between these two concepts, because we would like to get 5G, 6G, etc., or we would like the telecommunication service be pretty cheap and affordable for everybody. And this is why this discussion, I believe, is absolutely incorrect, and it is not constructive, and it very badly influences on this sector of industry. Okay, one of the main reasons for which I'm asking this question is because I'm a subscriber of Tele2, and you know, for example, my tariff was doubled as soon as the company was acquired by the Qatar company. And this is the reason for which I was just wondering, is it related with the desire of the investor to get the investment back as soon as possible, or is it because they are really very much focused on the promotion of 5G, 6G, etc.? Valentin, will you say a few words about it? Well, first of all, you know, as they used to say, the stock exchange, everything is taken into consideration during the transaction. What did we have before the transaction? There were two companies which belonged to Kazakh Telecom, to the same company, actually to the government. Now we have three players, and they belong to different companies. Therefore, they are now working in a competitive environment, and the competition will regulate everything. Mobile communications, cellular communication are associated with the augmentation of various technologies, because we have to increase the throughput capacity, because the consumption of the end user keeps growing, and we have to increase this throughput capacity more and more. And I think that it could be really a very good idea to make a computation of how much was the cost of a megabyte today, 3 years ago, and 5 years ago. And probably your conclusion would have been different about increased price of telecom services. I would also like to add, I used to be a terrestrial operator, staff member. I was in charge of the regulatory policy in CIS countries before I joined SATCOM division. And if previously we were counting the cases according to the number of the base stations, and if we wanted to break even in every case in 6 months, by 2010, we were taking a look at the annual prospects, and in 2014, if the break-even period for a base station was taking place in 1 year and a half or 2 years, we considered it very good. I would also like to say that, people are used to complain about the telecommunication services, stating that it is not of good quality and it is very expensive. But I think that people are getting used to good things very fast. I'm not stating that we are not facing any problems. Yes, the problems are there, but even if we take a look at the rating of our companies, and my presentation was demonstrating how fast we are growing, because during 2 years the average bit rate has increased during the last 2 years by 2.5 times. And I would like to give you a story from my life. In 2007, 2008, I opened the first operator of fixed telecommunication lines, and I remember that the bitrate was 128 kilobits per second, and it cost 3,200 tenge per month. And now we are providing exactly the same service, but right now the tariff is for 100 megabits per second at a price of 3,000 tenge. I would say that during the period of 15 years or even longer, the bitrate for the subscriber in the networks that I used to service has increased by about 1,000 times, whereas the price dropped down. And I have this second example. I really like when some, very nervous clients calling, and for whichever reason they did not have internet for 30 minutes when, for example, a bulldozer broke the line, or maybe sometimes the utilities company disconnected by chance the internet link, and people start calling, and they are threatening us, and they require to reduce the tariff. But if the client is paying only 4 tenge per hour, this means that for 30 minutes we can recompute the tariff and make it lower by 20 tenge. Well, this only is a demonstration that people do not value the telecommunication services that they get, because they would like to have a guaranteed 24/7 telecommunication link, and they do not realize that for them the cost of this telecommunication service per hour is just peanuts, whereas the telecoms operator, and especially given our geopolitical and economic situation, when the inflation rate is skyscraping, the prices are skyscraping, and I think that demanding or claiming that the tariffs should be reduced is simply not realistic. Oleg, thank you very much for this very inspiring final remarks. I would like to thank all the participants of our discussion, coffee break, and in 20 minutes we will again meet and we will be discussing satellite communications at greater lengths.